My name is Daniel. I'm 29 and I work the overnight shift at a small, family-owned motel in the middle of nowhere. It isn't part of any big chain, just a squat two-story building with 25 rooms, a flickering neon sign, and a parking lot that looks bigger than it ever needs to be. The hours are from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, which most people would hate, but it suits me fine. I've never been much of a people person, so 8 hours of peace and quiet usually feels like a blessing. The motel isn't complicated. You walk in through the glass front doors, and there's the lobby. A desk, a few chairs lined up against the wall, a little coffee machine, and one of those racks of dusty travel brochures that no one ever looks at. Behind the desk is a hallway that leads to the back office. That's where I spend most of my time. The office is more of a lounge than anything, with another desk, a couch that sags in the middle, a tiny fridge, and a TV mounted on the wall. The setup makes the job easy. There's a speaker in the back that dings whenever someone rings the bell at the front desk, so most nights I just sit on the couch, watch something on my laptop, and wait. I've worked here long enough that I know the sounds of the place by heart. The heater clicks when it kicks on. The walls creak like an old ship as the building settles. When a guest uses their keycard at night, the front door makes a buzzing sound. Those noises used to make me jump when I first started, but now they're part of the background. They let me know everything's normal. The thing is, on the night shift, even the most ordinary sounds can start to crawl under your skin if you focus on them too much. And every once in a while, something that seems normal at first turns out not to be. This happened on a Tuesday night in the fall. The air outside was sharp, in the 40s, and the lot was nearly empty. Just 4 or 5 cars belonging to guests, spaced far apart like they didn't want to be near each other. I was in the back, scrolling on my phone, when the speaker dinged. I got up, stretched, and walked into the lobby, expecting to see some late-night traveler wanting a room. But the lobby was empty. The desk was bare, the chairs untouched. I leaned over to look outside, but the road was dark and empty too. Not even the faint glow of headlights in the distance.
I stood there for a while, listening, waiting for the door to open. Nothing. Eventually, I told myself maybe I'd misheard, but the bell isn't subtle. It's sharp, clear, impossible to confuse. I knew I hadn't imagined it. After a couple minutes, I went back to the office. I sat on the couch, pulled out my phone again, and tried to shake it off. Maybe someone walked in and immediately walked back out before I got there. It was weird, but not impossible. Not even 10 minutes later, the bell rang again. This time, I shot up and walked quickly into the lobby. My footsteps echoed on the tile. Again, no one. The air in the room felt colder than before, like someone had just left. My skin prickled. I pushed through the doors and stepped outside. The lot was still the same. Cars dark and quiet, road empty in both directions, not a sound anywhere. I stood at the edge of the sidewalk, shining my phone's flashlight around. Nothing moved. There was no one to be found. I went back inside, my pulse quickening now, and decided to stay behind the desk instead of returning to the lounge. If some kid was playing a game with me, I'd catch them in the act. I sat down, opened my laptop, and waited. 15 minutes passed. Nothing. I began to relax again, convincing myself maybe it was a malfunction, some wiring problem with the bell. The thought of explaining it later, laughing about being spooked by bad electronics, made me smirk. Then, the bell rang again. My head snapped up so fast my neck hurt. The lobby was still empty. I pushed back my chair, walked around the desk, and checked behind it, but there was no one. I checked the small bathrooms off the lobby. Nothing. I stepped outside again, shining my flashlight across the lot, down the road, into the shadows by the dumpster. Dead silent. When I came back inside, I made a choice. If someone was sneaking around and ringing that bell to mess with me, I'd catch them in the act. Instead of going back to the office, I stayed in the lobby. I turned down the lights until the room was dim and sat in the chair behind the desk with my arms crossed, staring at the bell. The silence pressed in. Every sound felt amplified. The clock ticking on the wall, the hum of the fridge in the back office, the groans of the old building. My eyelids grew heavy. 15 minutes passed, then 20. My body started to relax. Maybe the prankster had given up. Maybe I'd just imagined the whole thing after all. And then it happened. The bell rang, loud and sharp. Only this time, I saw what rang it. A pale hand reached up from beneath the desk, stretched over the counter, and pressed the bell right in front of me.
The sight made my whole body lurch. I shot out of my chair, heart hammering, and bolted down the hallway into the back office. I slammed the door shut, twisted the lock, and stood in the dark, gasping. My mind reeled. The space under that desk wasn't big, but it was just big enough for someone to crouch if they squeezed in, which meant whoever it was had been hiding right beneath me. I forced myself to look at the monitors. There were 4 cameras, one covering the lobby, one on the hallway, and 2 on the lot. On the lobby feed, I saw the chair I'd been sitting in lying tipped over from my rush to escape. The counter was empty. And then, in the corner of the frame, something moved. A head rose slowly from behind the desk. I couldn't make out features, only the shape and the glint of eyes staring straight into the camera. My breath caught. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers and whispered into the receiver, telling the dispatcher that someone had broken in and was hiding in the lobby. She told me to stay calm, to stay where I was. Officers were on their way. While I whispered, the figure on the monitor shifted. He crawled out from behind the desk on hands and knees, moving slowly, deliberately. Then he stood up. He was tall, his posture hunched, and he wore a hoodie pulled so tight I couldn't see his face. He moved around the lobby like he was searching for something. Then he turned and walked directly toward the hallway that led to the office where I was hiding. I pressed my back to the door, clutching the phone so tightly it hurt. The knob rattled once, a slow, deliberate rattle, then silence. I could barely breathe. My throat felt like it had closed. For what felt like an eternity, I stayed frozen there, unable to speak, unable to move. Finally, I heard slow footsteps retreating. I dared to glance at the monitor again. The man had returned to the lobby. He paced in circles. At one point, he stood in front of the glass doors, staring out into the night like he was waiting for someone. Then he walked to the brochure rack and began flipping through papers, one by one, as though he had all the time in the world. Minutes dragged by like hours. Then, at last, the parking lot cameras lit up with flashing blue and red. 2 police cruisers pulled in. Relief surged through me. But the man saw them too. He bolted out of frame in an instant.
A moment later, I heard the front door slam open and the officers clearing the building, their voices echoing through the empty halls. They searched the lobby, the lot, even the road outside. They found a large rock near the front door, used to prop it open, but the man himself was gone. The officers told me he must have slipped out the second they arrived. I nodded, but inside, I couldn't shake the image of that pale hand sliding up from beneath the desk, pressing the bell like it was all some twisted game. Calm, patient, inches from me the whole time. Months have passed since that night, and I still work here. I shouldn't, but I do. And some nights, long after midnight, the bell rings. I rush out, heart pounding,
But the desk is always empty. The lot outside is still. The road is dark. Only now, when I check the security footage, it isn't just him I see under the desk anymore. Sometimes I see myself.